Captain Kalen had stopped looking at the stars 3 days ago. The observation deck of the civilian vessel Ashara's Hope had once been a place where the crew gathered after shifts. Families had laughed there. Children had pressed their tiny hands against transparent alloy windows and watched distant nebulae drift through the darkness. Now the deck was silent. The lights had dimmed to emergency levels, and frost had started forming around the edges of the windows. Nobody came there anymore. There was nothing left worth looking at. The life support systems were dying one section at a time. Food synthesizers had shut down 5 days earlier. Water reserves were nearly exhausted. The crew had reduced themselves to half rations until even those had become impossible. Many of the younger crew members had stopped complaining about hunger. They simply sat against walls with blankets wrapped around themselves, too weak to speak. Captain Kalen stood in the command center and watched another red warning appear across the damaged console. Ajax gen Risklyful Section 3. He closed his eyes. No anger remained, no fear, only exhaustion. Beside him stood Dr. Saren, the ship's physician. The old female Nerith looked 20 years older than she had 2 weeks ago. Her gray skin had become pale, and dark circles surrounded her eyes. "We lost 2 more during the night," she said quietly. Kalen didn't answer immediately. Names? Engineer Talon. His eyes lowered. And little Mira. The captain's fingers tightened around the rail. Mira, 6 years old. Too young to understand what starvation really meant. Too young to understand why everyone around her cried when they thought she was asleep. Dr. Saren's voice trembled. Her mother held her all night. Kalen swallowed hard. Did she suffer? No. The old doctor lied. Both of them knew it. Neither had the strength to speak the truth anymore. Around the bridge, the remaining officers sat in silence. Nobody shouted. Nobody panicked. The terrible thing about hopelessness was how quiet it became. First Officer Renek finally broke the silence. No answer from the Galactic Assembly. Communications Officer Velas shook her head. Nothing. Not even the trade unions? No. The Rescue Corps? They declined. Budget restrictions. Renek laughed. It wasn't a laugh born from humor. It sounded broken. Budget restrictions. Nobody responded. 3 weeks earlier, pirates had attacked Ashara's Hope during a refugee transport mission. Their escorts had been destroyed. The civilian vessel had escaped, but not before suffering catastrophic damage. They had transmitted distress signals, thousands of them. The requests had reached nearby governments, trade alliances, military sectors, corporate fleets. No one came. Ashara's Hope carried refugees, poor refugees, no strategic value, no political importance, no profit. Saving them wasn't worth the fuel. The galaxy had measured their lives against numbers, and numbers had won. Kalen walked toward the communications station. "Send another signal." Velas looked up. "Captain, send it." Her eyes filled with tears. "No one is listening." Kalen stared at the darkness outside. "Then let the void hear us." Slowly, she activated the transmitter. The message had become familiar. "This is civilian vessel Ashara's Hope. Critical systems failing. 117 survivors aboard. Children present. Requesting immediate assistance. Please, anyone." The signal disappeared into endless space. No answer came. Hours passed. Another warning appeared. Another compartment died. Another family said goodbye. By the time the artificial night cycle arrived, the crew had gathered in the central hall because it retained the last functioning heaters. Mothers held children close beneath blankets. Old workers leaned against walls. Some prayed. Others simply waited. Captain Kalen sat among them, not as a captain, not as a leader, just another man waiting to die. Young Officer Laren approached him carrying a small thermal flask. "There isn't much left." Kalen shook his head. "You drink." Laren smiled weakly. "My mother would haunt me if I drank while my captain stayed thirsty." Kalen accepted the cup. The water was warm, barely. He took a single sip and handed it back. "Your mother raised you well. She raised me to believe people help each other." Neither spoke after that, because both knew reality had proven otherwise. Across the galaxy, worlds continued spinning. Governments debated taxes, corporations counted profits, wars continued, and one dying ship became just another forgotten statistic. Nearly 70,000 light-years away, on a dangerous blue world famous for earthquakes, hurricanes, predators, diseases, and creatures with teeth, an aging listening station sat buried beneath mountains. Station Atlas 9 wasn't impressive. Its corridors were old. Its equipment was outdated. Most species considered Earth primitive. Humans themselves joked that half their technology worked because engineers threatened it into cooperation. Inside Atlas 9, Senior Technician David Mercer rubbed his tired eyes and drank terrible coffee. The night shift was always miserable. He hated night shifts. 3 decades in service, and he still hated them. Across from him, Lieutenant Sarah Reyes sat with her boots on the desk, reading maintenance reports. Then every screen in the room flashed. Both looked up. Mercer frowned. "What the hell?" An ancient antenna array began rotating. Signal indicators exploded across the displays. Sarah straightened immediately. "Unknown transmission." Mercer adjusted his headset. The room fell silent. Then a weak voice emerged through static. This is civilian vessel Ashara's Hope. Critical systems failing. 117 survivors aboard. Children present. Requesting immediate assistance. Please, anyone. The transmission repeated. Mercer's face changed. Sarah slowly lowered her feet from the desk. Neither spoke for several seconds, because there was something inside that voice. Not panic, not anger, just exhaustion. Mercer whispered softly. My God, the message repeated again. Please, anyone. Sarah stood. Trace it. Mercer blinked. Distance? Trace it. His fingers flew across the controls. When the coordinates appeared, his eyes widened. Holy hell. What? 70,000 light years. Sarah stared. How old is the signal? Recent. Can we reach them? Mercer slowly looked at her. Not from here. Silence filled the room. The message repeated again. Please, anyone. Sarah grabbed the emergency phone. Wake command. Mercer nodded. And the council? Everyone. The transmission reached Earth within 27 minutes. Governments were awakened. Military commands activated. Emergency conferences began. For 11 hours, arguments consumed the planet. Economists questioned the cost. Politicians questioned the risks. Generals analyzed possibilities. Several nations opposed involvement. One senator demanded reason. Why should humanity spend billions on strangers? The room fell silent. Then an old woman spoke. Secretary Amelia Ross, 78 years old, former nurse, survivor of 3 wars. She looked around the chamber. Because they're asking. Nobody answered. Her voice remained calm. 117 souls are waiting for death because no one answered them. Is this who we are? Another politician spoke. We don't know these people. Amelia nodded. Exactly. Silence. We don't know them. Her tired eyes swept across the room. And they're still worth saving. Across Earth, military bases received classified orders. Shipyards awakened. Factories roared. Engines started. Medical teams were called. Thousands of volunteers signed up within hours. Doctors, engineer, firefighters, retired veterans, cargo crews. Nobody was forced. People simply came. Commander Marcus Hale stood aboard the carrier Resolute and watched workers race through corridors. Marcus was a giant even by human standards. Gray streaks had begun appearing in his dark beard. Countless scars decorated his hands. He had spent 35 years in service and buried too many friends. Dr. Elena Vasquez approached him carrying a data pad. The chief physician looked exhausted already. 3,000 medical personnel ready. Marcus nodded. Supplies enough to feed a city. Burn units? Prepared. Children's medicine? Elena smiled. You asked me that 6 times. I'll ask a 7th. We have everything. Marcus finally relaxed. Around them, crews loaded food containers and emergency shelters. Nobody spoke loudly. Nobody celebrated. Because this wasn't war, it was rescue. Chief Engineer Connor Briggs emerged covered in grease. The old girl is ready, Marcus smiled. She'll hold? Connor snorted. She's human. That doesn't answer my question. It means she'll complain the whole way and get the job done anyway. Marcus laughed. For the first time that day. Hours later, Earth orbit became crowded. Massive warships gathered. Not sleek vessels, not elegant designs. Human ships looked brutal. Heavy armor, blocky hulls, industrial frames. Built to survive punishment. 37 ships assembled around the carrier Resolute, the largest rescue operation in human history. Not for allies, not for trade, not for territory, for strangers. Millions watched the launch across Earth. Nobody cheered. Many cried. Because every person listening had heard the transmission. Please, anyone. President Nathan Cole stood before cameras. His speech lasted only 14 seconds. To whoever sent that message, his voice cracked slightly. Inside the bridge of Resolute, Commander Marcus Hale sat down. Elena beside him. Connor Briggs behind him. Thousands of men and women at their stations. The fleet moved into formation. Outside the windows, stars stretched endlessly. Marcus activated the transmitter. Human rescue fleet, this is Commander Hale. 37 captains answered. Ready. Marcus took a slow breath. Set course. Navigation officers entered coordinates. Slipspace drives began awakening. The entire fleet vibrated. Blue light spread across armored hulls. Marcus looked toward the stars. Somewhere far away, 117 souls waited in darkness. He imagined children, parents, people preparing to die. His voice became heavy. Hold on. Around him, thousands of humans became silent. Just hold on. 37 warships disappeared into slipspace. And 70,000 light-years away, aboard the freezing halls of Ashara's Hope, Captain Kalen closed his eyes for what he believed would be the final time. He never knew that help was already coming. He never knew that an entire world had heard his voice. And he never knew that the monsters the galaxy feared most had answered. Captain Kalen no longer bothered checking the status displays. There was no point. Half the bridge had gone dark. Emergency lights painted everything in deep crimson. Frost covered the metal walls, and every breath from the exhausted crew turned into white clouds. Somewhere in the lower decks, another section had lost pressure, and nobody had enough strength left to seal it. The silence frightened him more than the alarms. People had stopped crying. People had stopped asking questions. Even hope had become too expensive. First Officer Rennick sat against the wall beside the captain's chair. His uniform hung loosely from his thin body, and his eyes remained fixed on nothing. "We have 6 hours," Rennick whispered. Kalen nodded. Maybe less. Nobody argued. Nobody searched for miracles anymore. Dr. Saren entered the bridge slowly. The old physician's hand shook. "We lost another 3. Kalen closed his eyes. "Names?" She swallowed. "The brothers from engineering." He nodded. The doctor could not finish. Tears finally appeared. "The mother from compartment 9. Kalen understood. Her daughter was still alive. He looked away. "How old?" 8. Neither spoke after that. Across the ship, families remained huddled together beneath blankets. Some parents lied to their children. "It's almost over. Everything will be okay. We're going home." But everyone knew those words were empty. Young Officer Laren sat beside little Era, the 8-year-old girl who had just lost her mother. She stared quietly at the floor. "When will Mom wake up?" she asked softly. Laren froze. He had faced pirates, explosions, deaths. Nothing had prepared him for that question. He forced a smile. "She loves you very much." The girl nodded. "She said heroes come when people need help." Laren's voice cracked. "Your mother sounds smart." Era smiled weakly. "She said heroes don't wear crowns." He looked away before she could see his tears. On the bridge, the communications panel suddenly sparked. Velis blinked. "What?" Static filled the room. Everyone lifted their heads. A voice emerged, broken, distorted, but real. "Ashara's hope. Receiving, please respond." Velis nearly fell from her chair. "Captain." Kalen rushed forward. "Open channel." Static exploded again. "Human rescue fleet to unidentified vessel. Receiving your distress call." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Rennick whispered. "Human?" Kalen stared. No species by that name existed inside any galactic registry. The transmission cleared. A calm voice echoed through the bridge. "This is Commander Marcus Hale of Earth. Hold on, we're almost there." Silence. Absolute silence. Dr. Saren covered her mouth. Velis burst into tears. Rennick looked like he had forgotten how to breathe. Kalen stepped toward the speaker. His voice shook. "You came?" The answer arrived immediately. "We heard you. That was all. 3 simple words. Not why, not who, not negotiations, not demands. We heard you." Captain Kalen sat down heavily. After 3 weeks, 3 weeks of begging, 3 weeks of watching people die, someone had answered. His hands covered his face, and for the first time since the attack, the captain cried. Not from despair, from relief. Hours later, strange readings appeared across the sensors. Velis frowned. Multiple signatures. Rennick stood. Pirates? No, her eyes widened. By the stars. The darkness outside shifted, and the universe changed. Massive shapes emerged from slip space. Not elegant ships, not beautiful. These vessels looked brutal. Heavy, their armored hulls resembled moving fortresses. Thick weapon batteries lined the sides. Gigantic engines glowed blue across blocky structures that looked more industrial than military. One ship alone dwarfed Ashara's hope. Then another appeared, and another. 37 giants emerged from the void, like mountains made of steel. The bridge crew simply stared. Dr. Saren whispered, "Those are rescue ships?" Nobody answered. Because rescue ships were not supposed to look like that. They looked like war. Yet the first transmission carried only warmth. "This is Earth Carrier Resolute. Medical teams preparing boarding operations. Please stand by." Kalen stared. "Medical teams?" Another voice answered. "We brought food." Across Ashara's hope, people rushed toward windows. Weak children climbed onto chairs, old refugees held hands, and everyone saw the impossible. 37 monsters, 37 steel giants, 37 answers to a prayer. Little Era looked outside with wide eyes. "They came." Officer Laren nodded. "Yes, the heroes?" His throat tightened. "Yeah, they came." Inside the carrier Resolute, alarms and voices echoed through countless corridors. Commander Marcus Hale walked through the launch bay. Thousands of personnel moved around him. Medics loaded supplies. Engineers prepared portable generators. Cargo teams secured food containers. Nobody wasted energy speaking. Heavy boots hammered metal floors. Every face carried exhaustion. Dr. Elena Vasquez grabbed Marcus by the arm. "We're sending everyone?" Marcus nodded. "Everyone. We haven't slept. Neither have they." She smiled softly. That was answer enough. Dropships launched by the dozens. Their engines illuminated the darkness. When the first shuttle connected with Ashara's Hope, Captain Kalen personally waited beside the airlock. His remaining crew stood beside him. Nobody knew what to expect. Legends spoke of deathworlders, savage species, violent species, creatures from impossible worlds. The airlock opened. Steam escaped. Heavy footsteps echoed, and then they appeared. Humans, tall, broad shoulders, muscular bodies, scarred faces. Their dark uniforms looked worn and practical. Leading them stood a giant man with gray in his beard, Commander Marcus Hale. His heavy eyes met Kalen's. The human removed his helmet. He didn't speak immediately. He simply looked around. He saw the frost, the starving children, the exhausted faces, and pain appeared inside his eyes. Not disgust, not fear, pain. Marcus stepped forward. "You've been through hell." Kalen could barely stand. "You came." Marcus nodded once. "Of course we did." The captain's legs gave out. Before he hit the floor, Marcus caught him. The giant human held him upright. "You don't have to stand anymore, Captain." Kalen broke. Weeks of pressure shattered. He buried his face against the human's shoulder and cried. Marcus simply held him. No judgment, no pride, just quiet understanding. Behind him, hundreds of humans flooded the corridors. Dr. Elena immediately knelt beside sick refugees. "Get blankets here. Start fluids. Check oxygen levels. Move carefully." Human medics worked like machines. They ignored exhaustion, ignored hunger, ignored sleep. They carried children, wrapped elderly survivors in thermal blankets, fed weak refugees spoon by spoon. Some medics had tears running down their faces as they worked. One young nurse quietly cried while treating burns on a little boy. But she never stopped. Chief Engineer Connor Briggs and his teams attacked the damaged systems. His people dragged equipment through frozen corridors. Welding sparks illuminated the darkness, sweat-soaked uniforms. Heavy boots slammed against metal decks. Engineers cursed and laughed as they repaired life support. One exhausted technician collapsed asleep beside a generator. Connor threw a blanket over him and kept working. Nobody rested, because people needed them. Little Era sat quietly while a human nurse offered warm soup. The girl stared. "Are you scary?" The nurse blinked. "What?" "Mom said Deathworlders are scary." The young woman smiled. "Only before coffee." Era giggled for the first time in weeks. Nearby, Officer Laren watched in silence. He saw another human medic carrying 3 children at once. He saw one's giant marine allowing frightened refugees to sleep against his armor. He saw a doctor. Elena refusing food because another patient needed it more. And he realized something strange. These creatures everyone feared, they looked tired. Not monstrous, not savage, just tired. Like people. Hours passed. Life slowly returned. Lights came back online. Heat spread through compartments. People ate, people laughed, people cried. Captain Kalen stood beside Marcus on the observation deck. Stars drifted quietly beyond the glass. "You crossed 70,000 light-years for strangers." Marcus shrugged. "You asked?" Kalen stared. "That's all? Isn't it enough?" Before the captain could answer, every alarm aboard Resolute screamed. Red lights erupted. Marcus froze. His expression changed instantly, not panic. Something colder, professional. An officer's voice burst through communicators. "Commander." Marcus turned. "Report. Enemy signatures." Bridge personnel shouted through channels. "Multiple dreadnoughts emerging. Confirmed pirate fleet. 30 vessels." Captain Kalen's blood turned cold. "No." Marcus looked toward the stars. The same ships. The same monsters who destroyed them. The pirate dreadnoughts had returned. On the bridge of Resolute, alarms echoed endlessly. "Tactical alert. Emiser weapons active. Distance closing." Marcus Hale stood motionless, then calmly activated his communicator. "All ships," 37 captains answered. "Ready." His voice became ice. "Form the wall." Outside the shattered hull of Ashara's Hope, 37 human warships moved as one. Massive armored hulls turned, engine blocks ignited. Steel giants repositioned themselves. And without hesitation, every human vessel placed itself between the helpless refugee ship and the approaching enemy fleet. The stars vanished behind a wall of earth steel. And for the first time in their lives, the survivors of Ashara's Hope understood what protection looked like. The pirate fleet emerged from the darkness, like a nightmare returning to finish its work. 30 dreadnoughts advanced slowly, their weapons charged and their engines glowing like the eyes of predators. They had expected broken refugees and easy victims. Instead, they found 37 armored warships standing motionless in formation. Captain Kalen watched through the observation deck of the Resolute. He had never seen such ships before. Human vessels did not move with elegance. They moved with certainty. Steel walls stretched across space, hiding Ashura's Hope behind their massive hulls. No hesitation, no fear. No ship abandoned its position. Commander Marcus Hale stood on the bridge with his arms folded behind his back. His face showed nothing. Tactical officers worked quietly. No shouting, no panic. Only professionalism. "Enemy weapons active," announced Lieutenant Brooks. "Distance closing. Estimated engagement in 4 minutes." Marcus nodded once. "Maintain formation, Doctor." Elena looked toward him. "You think they'll attack?" Marcus stared at the approaching fleet. "I don't know." Connor Briggs scratched his beard. "But we're ready." Nobody spoke after that. Across the rescue fleet, thousands of men and women sat at battle stations. Some wrote final messages to their families. Others quietly drank coffee. Engineers checked reactor levels while medics prepared emergency wards. Nobody celebrated, nobody wanted war, but nobody planned to move. Inside one pirate dreadnought, Admiral Varkan stared at the tactical display. His scales trembled. "Human ships?" One officer swallowed nervously. "Confirmed." Another officer looked horrified. "Deathworlders." Legends about Earth had spread throughout the galaxy for centuries. Stories of a species born on a violent world. Stories of creatures that survived diseases, disasters, predators, and endless wars. Stories that frightened entire civilizations. But Admiral Varkun frowned. Why are they protecting refugees? No answer came. A communication request appeared. Commander Marcus Hale. Varkun accepted. The human appeared on screen. Gray streaks filled his beard. His eyes looked tired, not angry, not excited, just tired. Varkun straightened. Human commander, these refugees are not your concern. Marcus remained silent. The vessel behind you belongs to us. Still nothing. They carry no value to your species. Marcus finally spoke. His voice was calm. Neither do you. The Admiral blinked. Marcus continued. But that isn't the point. Varkun narrowed his eyes. Move aside. No. Do not test us, Deathworlder. Marcus looked toward his officers. Many had not slept in nearly 40 hours, Doctor. Elena still had bloodstains on her sleeves. Connor Briggs stood beside exhausted engineers covered in grease. Young crew members sat quietly at their stations, some barely older than children. Marcus turned back toward the screen. We came here to save people, then save yourselves. No. The pirate admiral's voice became harder. We outnumber you, Marcus answered immediately. No. Varkun frowned. Human tactical screens illuminated behind him. 37 warships, thousands of guns, millions of tons of armor, 37 captains waiting. Marcus's eyes became cold. You misunderstand. His voice lowered. We are not protecting ourselves. Silence filled the bridge. Marcus spoke again. If you want them, he pointed toward Ashara's Hope. You go through us. Admiral Varkun froze. Nobody threatened. Nobody shouted. There was no rage, only certainty, the kind of certainty possessed by people who had already accepted death. The Admiral saw something terrifying. Not bloodlust, not hatred, conviction. He looked into Marcus Hale's tired eyes and understood. These humans would die, every single one. And they would do it without hesitation. For strangers, his officers looked frightened. One whispered softly. They mean it, another officer nodded. Stars preserve us. The Admiral slowly sat down. For the first time in his life, fear entered his heart. Not fear of weapons, fear of understanding. Who fought like this? Who crossed 70,000 light years to defend people they had never met? Who stood willing to die without asking for reward? The answer frightened him. Good people. And good people were dangerous. Because they endured, slowly, Admiral Varkun exhaled. Withdraw, his bridge officers stared. Admiral? Withdraw. But, now, one by one, the pirate dreadnoughts turned away. No shot was fired, no blood was spilled. 30 warships disappeared into slip space. And on the bridge of Resolute, nobody cheered. Marcus simply sat down. His shoulders suddenly dropped. The tension vanished. Dr. Elena smiled. Looks like they changed their minds. Connor Briggs laughed nervously. I was already writing my farewell speech. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes. Good. He stood. We've got patients waiting. Captain Kalen watched in disbelief. No battle, no glory, no triumph, just relief. The humans had been ready to die, and now they returned to repairing generators. As if protecting strangers had been nothing special, weeks passed. Ashara's Hope slowly recovered. Human crews worked endlessly. They repaired engines, installed new systems, shared food, shared stories, shared laughter. Little Era became famous among the human crews. She wandered through the Resolute without fear. One day she climbed into Commander Marcus Hale's chair. This is where heroes sit? Marcus smiled. No, then where? He pointed outside. Out there. Where? Everywhere. The little girl frowned. I don't understand. Marcus chuckled. Neither do adults. Era climbed into his lap. My mom was right. What about? Heroes don't wear crowns. Marcus became quiet. After a moment, he kissed the top of her head. No, they usually wear work boots. Months later, the combined fleet entered the home system of the Nareth Union. Millions gathered across the planet. News had spread everywhere. Families filled streets. Cities stopped. Entire continents watched the skies. Captain Kalen stood beside Marcus aboard the observation deck. His eyes filled with tears. We're home. The human commander smiled. Yeah, outside, thousands of lights illuminated the atmosphere. People waited. Mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, children, hope. As Ashara's Hope descended, millions erupted into tears. Families reunited. Parents embraced children they thought dead. Old lovers collapsed into each other's arms. Crowds cried openly. Entire cities fell silent under the weight of emotion. Captain Kalen stepped onto his world and found his wife waiting. Neither spoke. Words were useless. They simply held each other. Nearby, Doctor. Saren hugged her grandchildren. Office Laren reunited with his brothers, and little Era ran across the landing platform. Grandma! The old woman collapsed to her knees and wrapped her granddaughter in shaking arms. You're alive, Era smiled. The scary people saved us. Her grandmother blinked. What? The Deathworlders. She pointed toward the departing humans. They're nice. Across the galaxy, billions watched the official broadcast. Questions spread everywhere. Why had Earth done it? What did humanity gain? Commander Marcus Hale stood before countless cameras. He hated speeches, always had. His beard contained more gray than before. His eyes looked older. Doctor. Elena stood beside him. Connor Briggs yawned loudly somewhere behind the cameras. Marcus adjusted the microphone. The galaxy keeps asking why we came. Silence spread. His voice remained calm. Because someone asked. Billions listened. We heard a voice. We heard fear. We heard children. And we heard silence. His eyes became heavy. The silence frightened us. Around the galaxy, people watched in tears. Marcus continued. Our world is dangerous. We know suffering. We know loss. We know what it means to feel abandoned. His voice softened. So when someone cries for help, he paused. We answer. No applause followed, only silence, deep and emotional. Then Dr. Elena stepped beside him. The tired doctor still wore the same old medical jacket. Dark circles remained beneath her eyes. She smiled gently. Earth has ships? Connor Briggs appeared behind her, and enough engineers to annoy the universe. People laughed. Even Marcus smiled. Then little Era climbed onto the stage and grabbed the microphone. Millions watched. What do we say, Commander? Marcus laughed. You remember? She nodded proudly. The old soldier looked into the cameras, into billions of faces, into a galaxy that had feared humanity for generations. And with a tired smile and tears in his eyes, Commander Marcus Hale spoke the words that would become Earth's promise to the stars. Hold on. His voice trembled. We are coming. And from that day forward, whenever disaster struck, whenever darkness came, whenever hope seemed impossible, ships from Earth answered. Not because they were ordered, not because they wanted glory, but because somewhere, hidden in the endless silence between stars, there might be a frightened voice whispering the same desperate words. Please, anyone. And humanity had already decided long ago that nobody should face the dark alone.